Hey friends, welcome to Bokeh, a podcast exploring the ever-blurring lines between the personal and business lives of professional photographers. This is your host, Nathan Holritz, and I'm bringing you a special episode of the Bokeh Podcast today called Workflow Wednesday. During these special edition episodes, myself and my co-hosts will focus on helping you develop more efficient daily and weekly workflows around post-production, communication, task and project management, time management, file and image management, and yes, the list does go on. We're going to save you an incredible amount of time in your work week, and we promise not to be too nerdy. This podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the wedding and portrait photographer. Visit photographersedit.com. We are officially live. Okay, very good. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Workflow Wednesday and a little bit of a different format here. So bear with us again, the second week in a row with the potential of a little bit of technical issues. We'll just kind of try to work through them as we go. But I'm privileged to be joined today not only by our regular co-hosts, Rich and Heather. Haley happens to be out today, but also with a guest from last week, Shaun Austin from Kiss Books. And we also have Morgan here with us from Kiss Books. Morgan, thanks so much for making time to hang out today with us.
Yeah, of course.
I'm noticing the skateboards in the background. You have to give us a little bit of context.
Something I've been doing for a long time since I was kind of a young teenager. So
okay.
These are ones that I've skated previously and shown a little love to. So it's time to retire them, but create a little memorial. So yeah.
Okay.
So yep, that's my background. So
I never really did get into skateboarding. Is that something that you still do actively now, or more from your past?
I still pick it up, especially here in the summer, in LA and stuff like that. Just like, cruising around and enjoying the sunsets and stuff like that. So, yep, still do.
Nice.
It's a blast.
Rich, I don't picture you as a skateboarder. Is that a strength of yours?
No, that was definitely not a strength of mine. Oh man, but if this is kind of embarrassing, but I was a rollerblader, like in the 90s, early 2000s, doing the rollerblading thing. Yeah. Every once in a while, we'll be around town seeing someone rollerblade. I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, you just don't. It was so popular back in the day, and there's some people still trying to hold on to that. I like it.
But Shaun, what about you? You did a little bit of skateboarding, didn't you?
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California where it kind of started, but yeah, skateboard, I BMX raced, I rollerbladed as well, but I'm not embarrassed by that. I think we just need to own that.
You go. Okay. For here now, I'm proud of it. I'm a proud rollerblader.
That's right.
Nice.
Well, I thank you guys for kind of introing us with that. And Morgan, you in particular, I know that we haven't had a lot of chance to spend time together. I think we met briefly in person a little while ago at an event, and I think it was Nashville.
Yeah.
But I'm stoked to have you back, or to be able to actually get the chance to connect with you a little bit here, and hopefully more in person in the future. But we're continuing a series. First of all, just to give context for those that are watching live on Facebook and also potentially listening on the Bokeh Podcast. This is the Workflow Wednesday series. We do highlight the topic of workflow, more specifically efficient workflow for portrait and wedding photographers, really professional photographers of all sorts. Workflow is something that we do literally on a daily basis, whether we label it that or not. And the goal, of course, as business owners is ultimately to be able to work as efficiently as possible so that we can have more free time for the important people in our life. And if need be, to put a bit more time into things that are going to actually build our business. So the question, of course, is how do we work as efficiently as possible so we have more free time for those elements of our life and our professional life. And part of what we've been discussing in the last week and this week in particular with regards to workflow as photographers is album sales. This can be a bit of an overwhelming topic, and overwhelming. I think we pointed out some of the reasons why that was overwhelming last week. Maybe Rich, you can kind of highlight those points that we discussed last week, if you remember offhand some of those that you were talking about.
Oh, the fear of God aspect of it. I basically started off with just even a recent story where an old client about 5-6 years ago just contacted us, could not find her wedding images at all. And so she did not get a wedding album. And so she was asking us whether or not we still even had her wedding photos. I mean, like she was in this place where like she was afraid that all the photos from her wedding were gone. You know, like if I was like trying to clean off my hard drives, some photographers literally do that. They will, after several years, they'll literally clean off their hard drives. You know, we don't, but you know, and so she did not get a wedding album. So we were talking about the aspect of the importance of getting a wedding album, and just the pain points of actually the communication between me and my client of actually being very, very efficient in designing a wedding album, communicating with them, figuring out what kind of changes they may need, and going back and forth. And back in the day, obviously, I think Shaun even mentioned about starting off in Photoshop, then starting doing stuff in InDesign, and but neither one of those were just really good options for actually what we needed as photographers to communicate well with our clients. So
yeah, and I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I wasn't really even thinking about this element of the conversation last week, Rich. The significance of albums, just as it relates to the services and then the products that we're offering to our clients as professional photographers, the longevity of something like an archival quality album like KISS offers, versus the digital file, which, you know, as technology continues to progress, that technology changes, and our access to that particular type of technology. I think, Rich, you highlighted last week the reality, which is that even on an iPhone now, Apple is no longer rendering images as JPEG files. This file format that we've been so familiar with for years, that technology is likely beginning to make its way, maybe slowly, but slowly out the door, and maybe something else is going to come in as the common file format. But as technology continues to progress, it's a wonderful thing on so many levels, but the reality is that there's a potential that we lose these images that many of us are only storing digitally. So that is certainly a concern, and one of the primary benefits of having something like an archival quality album, like the ones that KISS offers. But then the actual workflow itself, I think, is one of the big apprehensions that a lot of photographers have when it comes to offering an album. The workflow, first of all, involved in actually creating that album. You alluded to Photoshop and InDesign. That used to be that was the way of old. And actually, even before that, I remember when I was shooting weddings, I'm still shooting film. We were using this. What was the name of the company at the time? This old software to lay out an album design, which we then sent into the album company, and then they would send us the appropriate mats, you know, with the mat numbers and everything, and then we would put the images into those mats. It was just this extremely tedious process. But the design, and then the design of the album itself, the communication, Rich, as you highlighted, with the client about that design to get their approval or disapproval, in some cases, ultimately refining that design, finalizing it, then setting it off to get it ordered. This whole process over the years has been extremely complicated. We are huge fans of simplicity here at the Bokeh Podcast and Photographers Edit, because again, our goal here is to minimize the amount of busy work in our lives as professional photographers, so we have time for the important stuff. And KISS has done a brilliant job over the years of not only as a brand, I mean, we could have a whole podcast episode or two just highlighting the wonderful work that Shaun and the team at KISS have done to create this beautiful brand that has a very distinct brand position, which is focused on simplicity, the simplicity of the user experience. But you've continued to refine that over time, and you offer a solution that I think is a wonderful solution to the pain points that we described last week. And so it's only fitting, not only because I'm good friends with you guys, but also because you offer a really great solution to these pain points for photographers, that we have you guys on the podcast again and on the Facebook Live series this week again, so that we can share what KISS is doing to solve those pain points. And so we have Morgan here with us this week. And Morgan, I want to just going to go ahead and turn the show over to you, let you take over and share what KISS is doing to address these primary pain points that we just discussed.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to share that and everything. And I think that like one of the key words that like I've heard mentioned here even a couple times just now is, you know, efficiency. And that's like such a huge thing for KISS of like, you know, we kind of view what, you know, the album process, the design process, all the way up to the ordering and the sharing, as well as to the final product as a continuation of the story of your relationship with the client, of the relationship of, you know, the story that's built in the special day of the wedding and, you know, all of that. So it really does, we do view it as a continuation of creating that experience and telling that story that ends in an album and ends in sharing your story, sharing your album, you know, for generations. So yeah, can't wait to kind of show you guys through the whole system. And I'll start with the designer, go into the proofing and sharing systems and some of that, and then I'll kind of close out with the ordering. So.
And just for clarity's sake, and I want to make sure that everybody listening in knows who everyone is. Of course, those listening into the Workflow Wednesday series know Rich and Heather, richsmithphotography.net or .com, whichever your preference.
Whichever.
And then, of course, Shaun, we had on the show last week as CEO over at KISS. And then Morgan, talk to us just briefly about your role there at KISS before we get into the details of how KISS is solving these problems.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with KISS for a number of years now. And it's really cool to see kind of the evolution that the entire brand has taken on, and kind of like what you alluded to earlier of just like establishing that name and simplicity. So I've been with them for a number of years, and I'm currently working as part of the development team and building some of the new systems that we're super excited about, and can't wait to kind of share, which will be probably next year's episode. So yeah, I've been with them for a number of years, kind of doing a lot of this design and tech work like that. So
yeah, we have
awesome.
a core team of 6 of us, including myself, and he's on that core team. And so, a team of between, 20 to 25-ish total for the company. And I can work with the core team, and then it's like top down. My goal is to create leaders. And, a good leader has followers. A great leader has leaders that they're multiplying. And Morgan has stepped up to that and has really like leaned into like, hey, what does it mean to lead people? And for himself, he's grown a lot since he's been with KISS as well. So it's always great having somebody that is open to grow and to become a leader for the company. And Morgan's great at it. So I'm excited for him to show you around the software that he's a huge part of building. He does a lot of testing in there, and started with us doing as just a designer. And a designer is like a remote work, pick up designs when you want type of a thing. And funny story about Morgan, because he knows enough about development. All this, we had like 5, 6 designers at the time. And all of a sudden, one of the designers reaches out to us and says, I can't get any designs. Like, I used to be able to get a handful of them, like 10 a month or whatever. I got 0. And so we see the pay that goes out, and all of a sudden it went from like however many designs it was. But like all of a sudden let's say there's 40 that month or something like that. Morgan had 40. And we're like, and so we're like, how is he doing that? And they're like, I go, like they get an email and then they have to grab it from the email. And so what Morgan had done is he wrote a little widget that as soon as the email came across, it grabbed the design for him. So when he could be out skateboarding and he's grabbing designs, he gets home, does the design. He got them all out on time, but he like all the other designers were like, this is kind of a nice little supplemental income. And some of them did it more full time, but Morgan, we're like, I kind of want to let you keep it, but we can't. Like, like nice. We were like, good job. That was the coolest thing we've ever seen.
Initiative.
They're really mad. Yeah. And so that's him though. He like takes initiative, and I just love it. So a little fun story about Morgan. Also, one other thing, and then you can jump in. What is your trophy, or what is your what is like the fun fact on our website about you?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I already read about this one. I like it.
Yeah. So well, good. First of all, talking about what you just mentioned with the whole, grabbing designs, if anyone that was designing with KISS is listening to this, I'm sorry. I think but probably can't do enough. But anyways, my fun fact. So if you go onto the team page and you find my little picture there, I was the national Oreo stacking champion of, I think it was 1998. I did a little competition while we were in Florida one year, and I think I got like a pretty cool watch out of it or something. I wish I still had it, but yeah, I was pretty young, but best in my division. So
you got to give context to this though. I didn't know it was even a thing. Oreo stacking, as in like you're seeing how high you can stack.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to know context because I have so many different things in my mind, and literally ever since I've heard this, every time I see an Oreo package in the store or wherever, I'm like, I think of Morgan, and I've pictured him like stacking it like cups and then unstacking it. I've done like the height thing. I think like I've thought through so many ways, and I don't know if I want to know. Go ahead.
The pyramid version.
Yeah.
I'm not here to give away my secrets.
Oh, that's really awesome. Well, I have to comment. Shaun was talking about company culture, and the reality is they've created something there at KISS, which is quite unique. And I have to give major props to Shaun and the initiative that he's taken over the last 2 or 3 years to create a really powerful company culture that truly invests in the employees. And if you ever have the opportunity to drive through the Indianapolis area, make sure you reach out to KISS. They'll likely let you come by and take a look at the production facilities and see what they're doing there and meet some of the team. It's a really, really powerful experience. And I have so much respect for what you guys have created there. So major props to you for that. But without further ado, Morgan, we're going to kind of let you take the floor and highlight this workflow that KISS has created.
Yeah, awesome. Well, anytime doing this, ask me questions. I know how it goes. And I've been working this for so long, sometimes I even forget some of the really cool parts, but I'll be sure to cover those. So I'm going to switch over to sharing my screen here to start with.
Cool.
Right.
And we can see it. So that's great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're seeing right here is when you log into your KISS account. So this is really like the dashboard is what we call it, the hub where everything lands. So you have your designs and you have your orders where you can check in on, the full status. We actually update, you mentioned kind of the workflow and like in the lab in Indianapolis, every time your book moves or your album moves through a certain stage in the process, you get like a real-time email or update on your dashboard, which is super cool. Most of mine say canceled, but that's not because the lab is bad. I'm doing some testing. So
I have to mention here that, there's something that we've talked about quite a bit in the podcast is the significance of maintaining or managing expectations effectively for our clients. We certainly have to do that as photographers for our photography clients, but I love that you guys are proactively doing that on the KISS side as well. It's something that we put a lot of priority on at Photographers Edit. I think it's so important. Photographers need to want to know exactly what is going on when, and the fact that you make that so easy to find out is really, really great.
Yeah. And I think so many people are so excited to get their albums and stuff, especially once the order, hopefully it's not a month-long or year-long process, but sometimes that is the case. And I think people are so excited once the order's placed and stuff that, being able to communicate that to your client is just really helpful. So, yeah. So I will kind of dive in then into the actual designer process, which is really the first part of what we view as like the continuation of the story of the day. So I have a design open already, so I'll kind of just switch over here. So for example, this is what happens when I open the design and I'm able to start with sort of the cover options and able to pick my cover color and material, add on some really cool things like the cameo you see in the center and the text. We just expanded those text options where you can literally engrave or deboss any graphic you want, which is super, super cool. And we were, so excited about that one because it was something we've been working on for a long time. So
yeah, to be clear, this is the photographer. So you as the business gets to see this. There is a section where you can share, which you'll get to for your client, but your client does not see any of this stuff. This is your dashboard, your designer. You get to pick all these things. Your client does not see this until you are ready to share it. So this is the designer for the photographer. This is all web-based as well. So it's available with any computer that you're at anywhere. You just log in and this pops up versus some of the other ones out there, which there's some great ones. Fundy, Smart Albums, they're doing a great job as well. But they're desktop versions. So it is to that specific desktop.
And also just add as a side note here, most of you are probably listening on the podcast. So if you are listening, you need to come see the visual of this that we're talking about. And Morgan, maybe you can kind of narrate in detail as we go along for those of you who are just listening or for those that are just listening on the audio side. But please make sure this is a live video right now, Facebook Live. If you go to facebook.com/photogsedit, PHOTOGSEDIT, if you're listening to the audio version, you can watch the replay of this because you're going to want to actually see what this looks like and how easy KISS has made it to not only to create an album, but ultimately deliver it to the client. So I just want to throw that in there, but Morgan, we'll let you take it away again.
Yeah, sure. That's a great point. I'll be sure to kind of illustrate that a bit for any listeners. So to give a little bit more of the history that Shaun was just mentioning, the designer really is built to be accessed anywhere. Working remotely is what I do. It's what probably all of us, everybody does. I think that KISS, this existed before I came around with KISS, and I really think they were ahead of the curve on creating something that is like super elastic, super portable. Travel is at the forefront of so much of our lives now, and being able to access your designs literally anywhere is, I think, such a key thing from any computer. I'm actually working on not my main computer here, but was able to pull this up in, a matter of a minute, just logging in. So so continuing then into the designer, for the listeners, we kind of have, what we have is really a visual mock-up of what the album will look like. You get everything from, when you select a different color, which I'll kind of illustrate here, the mock-up reloads and changes to show you exactly what it would look like. You can change the cover text or the graphic that's on the cover, and everything is extremely dynamic like that. So it's intelligent enough to kind of recognize what you're doing and give you real-time updates. So, but definitely come take a look at the video if you can. So,
and I'm sure a question you get a lot is with regards to the type of materials that you offer. And I'm noticing here on the interface that you've got both leather and linen options. Do most of the colors are most of the colors available in both material options?
Yeah, you can have it however you want. You pick your surface of your paper, so matte or luster, thin or thick page, and then you can put any cover on any of those things. So we've made it like, we called it mix and match when we first launched it. And so you can pick leather, linen. There's no books that can't have any type of leather or linen material on it. Now we have a fine version of linen. There's texture, there's silks, there's things like that. So it explains it over there on the left. But yeah, you can pick any of those there's no that's why when we're trying to keep it simple, it's like, oh, you can only get leather in these particular ones. I see it quite a bit. It's like, man, the only way we're going to launch it is if it makes total sense. And it's like, you can have it how you want it type of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that. It was interesting to watch the shift of KISS. Initially, this idea of keeping it simple was about minimizing the number of options, but the direction that you guys have moved now is making more options available, because we all understand photographers like control. They like to be able to choose from just gobs of options. It's something that we've had to accommodate at Photographers Edit as well. But your focus now is on simplicity of user experience versus minimizing the number of options. And I love that. You can still give them the options, but the process of actually designing and then placing the order is still simple. And I think that's a wonderful balance.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just talking with some of the development team the other day, and every time we make a change or every time we're going through a new update or adding a new feature, that question is seriously literally asked every single time of like, is this simple? How can it be simple? Is it user friendly? And if it's not, then we go back and figure out how to make it that way. So, like what Shaun was mentioning with being able to order, any paper type or any album cover color from any album. One of my favorite things is being able to order literally a 4-inch book or a 12-inch book from the same exact files with KISS.
Yeah.
Which is something I can go over a little bit more later in the ordering process. But it's literally, you upload one time, get your design. There's no resizing. There's no exporting. It's just, I want a 4-inch in this color and I want a 12-inch in that color. And, again, that really goes back to the heart of that user friendliness and that simplicity that is, asked every time we're adding anything. So
cool.
Awesome.
Show us a couple of your favorite features.
Yeah, of course. So I'll kind of click here through and show you kind of the heart of how designing works in the designer. So for those listening, all I'm going to be doing is really taking my images at the top that I've uploaded from either my hard drive or one of the various galleries that we've partnered with, wherever those are hosted. And I literally just drag and drop them right down into the spread. Wow. And you can see that it kind of changes automatically based on the number of images that I have. So I have a template bank down at the bottom where I can just click through and I'm able to see those images transition and rearrange themselves on the frame or on the spread. And then I can swap around as I need be. So that's honestly one of my favorite things. The template bank is sort of intelligent enough to recognize how many images you have in there and show you the appropriate number of frames. You can create your own and save your own templates if you want to kind of get manual with it. And then you have access to those on any of your designs.
Now, does it recognize the different aspect ratios? So if you put a portrait and a horizontal photo in there, like a vertical or horizontal photo in there, it would change based on that?
Yeah. It does its best to kind of recognize like you said, the aspect ratio. And if it's a vertical frame, it puts the vertical image in there, and horizontal. So that's a really cool part. Just a good time saver as well. Nice. And you can also, there's actually an auto build feature that's built into the designer that uses that sort of intelligent system to be able to kind of get you a jump start on a design. Sometimes the hardest part is you have you have the images culled, but you just starting is a bear. So, you can use that to either go so far as to set up each individual spread. Let's say you have it down to a system to where you know exactly how your day is going to go. You're shooting for the album, and you kind of have it down pat. You can actually go and have it fill in those spreads that you've arranged, or you can have it do its best to kind of build a design for you. So those are some really, really cool features, big time savers again. And again, that's at the heart of the user friendliness that we kind of wanted to give options to. So
yeah,
Morgan,
I love that.
Can you grab make a new blank spread and then grab a group of photos so you can show
sure.
if it's able to recognize the vertical horizontal. So you grab a group of like them getting ready or whatever that session is, and you want that all on a spread, so you can grab a group of them, drop it down, and then it will, and you can click through. So you use your arrows to click through them at the bottom, or you can just pick one with the actual cursor of the mouse.
Nice.
Am I jumping the gun by asking you to expound on the, you mentioned pulling images from either an external hard drive or online galleries?
Yeah. No, not jumping the gun at all. It's a great time. So one of the cool things is you can kind of mix and match those things. So when you start a design, we've partnered with some people like Shootproof and SmugMug and, there's one more and they're going to kill me if they hear it. I can't think of the name.
Zen? Is it Zen?
Yes, Zenfolio. That's
Okay.
what it is. And so if you have galleries already hosted there, where you're sending those proofs to your clients and sharing in that way, you can actually connect that entire gallery to your KISS design. And then you can have as many photos as you want. And it's all just like right there already. So you don't have to upload again. And we actually pulled the like original highest res version of those photos. So, there's quality's never concern.
Yeah,
So
that's what a lot of my travel is based around that. So I'll go to those companies, ones that we're plugged in with and ones that we're not, invest in a relationship, but really talk about what does it look like for us to serve your clients as good as possible. So I invest in the relationship. I like doing business with people, that we're friends with and things like that. Some of it has worked out to where we integrate. And then it's like, what would it look like? Not meaning we're going to do it, but what would it like to integrate deeper? So we've talked about like folders that are favorites and things like that. A deeper integration, so it's like an album's favorite folder.
that was my next question. Yes, because our clients have the ability, we use Shootproof, and so our clients have the ability to go on and favorite images or create subcategories like an album they can create an album category. So you guys are moving forward on that.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're great. I was just down in Georgia. Strong team. They're doing great stuff.
Awesome.
And I really like what they got going on. But ultimately, their folders, their smart folders and stuff like that. We've talked about just a deeper integration to be able to grab it. Worst case scenario though, right now, you can just grab that folder and that's what you move over. And one other thing at the top as he's grabbing photos, so those numbers on the photos, those are how many times it's used in the design. So if you only want it to be used once, it turns red because it's like, hey, this has been used twice. Are you sure you want to use that? And that one has been used 3 times.
Nice.
So just little fun things about the designer. Go ahead, Morgan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention one other thing too. The significance of addressing this kind of paradox of choice issue, right? When people have so many options, how do they choose the first that first image or the first few images? That's a real struggle for photographers. And so the fact that you guys make that easy by just auto-populating a potential set of album spreads, I think is really, really nice because it gives them a starting place. They can go in and edit those and update them as necessary, but it gives them a starting place that kind of, deer in the headlights, like, oh shoot, I've got, however many 100 images or more to sort through. Where do I even start? You guys give them a head start. And I think that's a brilliant feature.
Yeah, it's a huge hurdle to get over is to get it started. And if it's a great thing to outsource. If you're not a designer or you're struggling with it, let somebody else do it. There's so many people that do this. There's companies that just do design. We offer a design service where we'll design it for you, a new version of it coming out. It's where we will give you a rough draft that you take to your client, and for a different fee, we will go straight to your client. And we've done a lot of feedback with brides and with photographers that are having issues getting them to the finish line. One of the things is if you don't set a deadline, they may never order the book. That's just what happens. Yeah. So because a lot of our designers are struggling with that, both versions are like you have a 30-day countdown to get this done, either the photographer or or the bride, that's what we call the client, but the client, like the photographer's client, gets 3 rounds of changes and 30 days to get those done. Mm-hmm. And so it's just setting boundaries. There's so many times that like we need those boundaries. And it's funny because the day 26 or 27, the countdown, they only have 3 or 4 more days left. That's when they're going to want to do all their changes, but at least they got to it. If it's this, forever thing, and they get their book 2 years later after their wedding, they're not good as a marketing piece for you. They're like, oh, I want to show you my wedding album. It's like, didn't you get married 2 years ago? Like, they're way more excited if they got it within a few months of their wedding. They're going to walk around there, a walking commercial for you. That's what the Little Kiss is for, the 4x4 book and stuff like that. But if they have their album and they show it to people, it is like a walking commercial for you. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. Well, Morgan, I know we all just kind of jumped in on you there, but we'll send it back to you. Go take it away.
Yeah, of course. No, questions are awesome. So, that really is kind of the heart of the designers, using that template system to kind of, like you said, really give you a jump start and kind of, get that deer in the headlights kind of, feeling away from you, to be able to just get to work and, kind of make it as breezy as possible. So, there are other options that the designer has, to be able to give you the exact design that your client's looking for, that your brand likes to represent. Everything from being able to deboss like your brand logo on the inside of the cover, which is a really cool new feature. We have like background options and, being able to, kind of layer images and things like that. So a lot of the normal tools that you're used to in a lot of the either designer applications or things like that, we've definitely put in here and made that a focus. So, but those things are all sort of tucked away enough to where you can really just use it in its core and that template system and make it super, super quick. So
now I'm curious, what percentage of your clients are doing their own design within the designer? And then what percentage of them are like, you know what, we just want you guys to take care of that element for us. What would you say the split is? And maybe just to add to that question, for those who are doing their own design, what's the average time that it usually takes them to do a design and using the designer that you just demoed?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll answer that one, the one you just asked, to everybody, because we did some studies on it when we first decided to build the designer. It was taking over 50 hours to do the entire album process. So the back and forth, it was email based. You're in those heavy softwares that Rich referred to, like Photoshop and InDesign. And so the back and forth was via email, or, like Dropbox wasn't even around back then and stuff like that. And so it was like trying to figure out how to communicate just to swap that photo on the right to black and white. It is very difficult over email to explain which one it is and to try and set up a process and a system. And so it was like, I was ready to be done selling albums just because the process was so tedious. And so it was taking 50 hours. Now we've remeasured it and it's like less than 2 hours of your time invested, because you come in, you make the changes and you send it right back, all in the system. You don't have to leave the system. You don't have to go out, create a new email. It does it all from within the system. So Morgan will show you a couple of those features. Yeah. But it's still over 95% of people are coming through doing it themselves. And that is partly because we've never promoted our designer, and they could be using, it doesn't mean that they're not using a designer, because there is design companies out there that we know are like, they have accounts with us and they're, putting the orders in and stuff like that. So we know that's happening. I think that's a great thing to outsource, because so many times that designer makes our photography look better, because that's what they do for a living. Our designers that design for KISS, they do, hundreds, whatever. They end up getting really good at what they do because they see so many different weddings,
or maybe thousands in Morgan's case, right?
Yeah. Sometimes some are better than others now. But yeah, it's a great question, because it's one of the things that I would say, like, strongly, for $49, we'll do a design for you. Like, we're doing that in order for you to remove barriers for you to get to the album easier. And sometimes if this is a barrier, we'll remove it for $49. Like, what can you do with those, that the time that our designer is doing that for you? What can you do? Handwrite a note, invest in your clients, spend time with your family, or in the relationships that matter most to you. We're always thinking, that's our why, is creating margin. To pursue simple is to create margin for them. So in all the things that we launch, we're trying to create margin, So, yeah.
That's really, really great. Well, thanks for that perspective. It was just kind of curious as to what that looked like for you guys. And I mean, again, this tool is so elaborate and yet simultaneously simple that it seems to only make sense that most of your clients are going ahead and taking advantage of that because it is so powerful. So I appreciate you continuing to share this. Morgan, once they get in and they get this design put together, what is the next step in the process? What does that look like?
Yeah. So once the design is set, communication starts, sharing it with your client, receiving feedback. Comments are all kind of like what Shaun mentioned. They're all contained within our system. So you actually have back on your dashboard options to kind of share the slideshow, which is our proofing system, directly with your client through email. And that actually keeps you notified of when it's in your court or their court. So if you have a lot of designs active at the same time, you can kind of manage everything there. So the slideshow, this is kind of what the customer sees, your client, as well as what you can see to share with others. So this is, again, the proofing system that's built around the slideshow that has everything from the option to allow your clients to change the cover color. You can set up what options your brand or your business likes to offer. So either album sizes, pricing, things like that. And then there's actually a communication system that's built in with the commenting system. So again, each comment is left directly on each spread. And then there are email systems built within that sharing system. So once your client is ready, they said, this is the most perfect design ever. You nailed it in one, which happens all the time. Then they can share that with you and say, they approve of it and it's ready for ordering.
Another thing to point out real quick is we bought albumapproved.com, so it doesn't say kiss.us. We're always trying to create at least some type of a barrier. A lot of photographers love the KISS brand, and so they share it with their clients, but they're locked out of like pricing and things like that. But for the ones that are like, hey, I just want the separation, we bought album approved, so it's not like kiss.us / their client's name or anything like that. So what they share, there's no KISS branding on this particular part. It goes straight, they can share it on Facebook. It's not a KISS promotion. It's album approved, which is just a kind of pretty generic, hey, this is your album approval mode and stuff like that. So the first version you can send over to your clients doesn't have to have the comments. The comments are for your bride, but you can send over one that is not, and that's what they can share to Facebook and stuff like that. So it'll show the slideshow on Facebook. Their friends can look at it and see it that way, or they'll see it right here in album approved if they want to as well. But they don't get a guest doesn't get access to make comments and things like that. This is an unlocked version for your client to communicate back and forth.
And then once that client makes the comments within that interface underneath each, I always get this confused. So clarify it for all of us. Is it spread or page?
Yeah, both.
Yeah,
that's page 1 and 2, spread 1. In if you look at it in the warehouse, it'll say spread 1 because the full spread is 2 pages.
Got it.
I don't know where we just got away from the magazine that had, or reading books that always have had it side 1, side 2, or page 1, page 2. Yeah. It is a spread that you're looking at as a 2-page spread that you're looking at.
Got it.
Yeah. And I love this feature that I see here that says save comments and finish later so that work isn't lost if someone doesn't get to everything all at once. That's a really nice feature.
Yeah, we have an auto update. And so when they make that comment and they send it back to the photographer, it queues it up in their dashboard that, hey, they commented on it. It puts it in a different priority for you in a different order. And so it puts it back to the top like, hey, somebody responded, you have some stuff to do. And so they can go and read the comments. Like that comment right there could say, hey, swap that photo out on the right for this one. I like photo number 287. And so you just swap it out. And then when you respond, you can check it off and it shows it grayed out it still shows you can read it, but it's grayed out like with a line through it. And so you can have a paper trail of what happened, but you check it off like, hey, I've done that. Move to the next thread and answer that comment. So they can send over a group of comments. That is like what we consider a round of changes. Is they can go and comment on everything and we'll update and then send it back to them. And then it shifts back out of that kind of priority. Oh, it's back in the photographer or in the bride's court.
And when the photographer gets that, I love that it automatically prioritizes what they need to go address next. So if a client makes a comment, it bumps in priority. They go click on that. Does it automatically take them to that page where they can just make the change immediately? Or what is that interface? Is it a very similar interface to the design interface?
It takes the photographer, it goes right back into the designer. And so you can just see the ones that have comments on it. You can look at it as like a spread view or a page by page like this. The spread view will say like this one has comments on it or whatever. So you can just click on it. There's ways that you can flow through it in like multiple. Can you pull up multiple spread view, Morgan?
Yes, back in the designer.
Yep. So they can see it like that, where they can scroll through it.
Okay, cool.
And if there is comments on something like that, it would just say that there's comments on it. So you can click on that one. As soon as you click on it, it goes to that particular spread.
Yep. So all the comments would actually populate here on the side.
Oh, nice.
For
okay.
each spread. So, and then you can communicate directly in the designer as well. So if I wanted to leave a comment as a photographer, it actually says, photographer, and it's a different color, just so every, bit of communication is clear. And then some of the cool options, like if you use the design service that we offer, there's also a third party kind of chat bubble color, which is the designer. So but that's optional. Like if you want if you want that communication between designer and client to go on, you can do that. Otherwise, you can keep that between photographer and client. So.
Yeah, we
That's
just
great.
got the URL in-house designer, or that's what we're calling it, is in-house designer. So like you can talk to my in-house designer, and that is just like us designing for you. But it's like, again, a great way to outsource it. We can do the communication for you. We've done communication, for, like you said, hundreds or thousands of brides or photographers. So the communication, we write certain language to use and things like that in the communication back and forth with your client. So.
Do you find that there's any difference in the length of time between the beginning of an album design process and the ordering when your designers are the ones communicating with the client versus when the photographer is the one working directly with their clients?
It's all over the road. That's such a great question. And it's not like there's a magic way of doing this. And so what we're learning, again, all the data and the feedback that we get because we have a designer and, a massive amount of people using it, is setting boundaries and deadlines are huge. So what we're going to say is when we launch this new version of it, it'll be $49 or $99. For $49, we'll work, and it's called like a rough draft. So we'll do a rough draft for you, the photographer. The designer will design it. We flip it in 24 hours, and we get you that design. And I think it's like there's a round of changes maybe in there, or maybe it's just the rough draft. I think there's a round of changes. And then for $99, we'll work directly with your client. And so it's 3 rounds of changes. And so we even are trying to like get the photographer to stand behind us and what those changes look like. What's worked for us in the past and for top photographers that currently use KISS is you can change. So your comments, you can swap out a photo and you can take photos out. But if you want to add photos to it, you're likely going to add spreads because we tell the story as we saw it. We're very, minimalist on how we do it. We want you to want more by the end of the book and flip through it again. But if you start to turn it into like a yearbook, then let's buy you a proof book, not like an investment, like a high-end album like that. Let's buy you 4x6s of your wedding, or 4.5x6s, depending on what format you shot it in. And so we're trying to help them lead their clients. And that's something that a lot of us struggle with, is like, I want to do the art, the creativity. And so as soon as I start to set boundaries or limitations, I feel like I'm doing them a disservice, when in actuality what the studies show is like we're doing them a disservice by not giving them boundaries or limitations to the 30 days and things like that. So 3 rounds of changes in the 30 days. Here's how a change would look like. You can swap out photos, you can make it black and white or whatever, but you cannot add. If you add, we just add spreads, and that's no big deal either. And the photographer has it worked out that extra spreads cost X amount of dollars or whatever. So
Okay.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Okay. So they've got this. I mean, once you get that feedback from the client, it's really easy, as we can see here on screen, to update the spreads or the pages, depending on the situation, as needed. What is then the next step? Once that has been finalized, completed, then you're going to go to place the order for that particular album?
Yeah. So basically the client lets you know it's ready to go, or that deadline is, coming up, and you're ready to actually place the order. And kind of like I alluded to earlier, we also wanted to remove any roadblocks from ordering. There's so much time spent, resizing and readjusting and things like that. So
exporting,
it's literally just adding to your cart, which is I've done here. So I will click add to cart. I get a pop-up that allows me to select my options, cover color, inside color, the paper type and page thickness, things like that. And I'll kind of click around just to kind of show you that a little bit here. And then I will go, so I just need to move this. clicking through to next. This is part 2 where I literally just select size and quantity. And then, any add-ons like boxes and, dust covers and things like that, which you can also customize. And then you just add it to your cart. And this is our new gift wrap option.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, this is actually really, really cool. And
very popular too. We just launched it 2 months ago.
Yes.
It's like 20% of orders coming through are doing gift wrapping. So you can drop ship straight to your client. We will do gift wrapping, and we have a calligraphist that handwrites notes for you. So you can type in what you want written down there below. That's what the card looks like on the left. And they handwrite it, and we put it in the shipping. So they get it from you. Again, there's no KISS marketing branding. There's no invoice in there. You can download your invoices from the dashboard. But we don't do any of that because we know a lot of our clients are drop shipping to their clients. We had so many people that would order the album. It'll come here to their studio. Mm-hmm. They will unbox it, put their stuff in it, and then repackage it. I totally get it. So we're trying to cut that corner for them. So it's really affordable, and we write a handwritten note because that's just what has worked for us in our company as KISS and as photographers as well. So it's a really cool option. Then we have holiday options coming out for the end of the year as well.
Well, the gift wrapping is cool. I have to say, I love those walnut boxes too. Are just absolutely stunning. I've seen a variety of samples over the years at the shows that we've done together, and they're just absolutely gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So then they can choose that option there, Morgan, and even customize a note that is going to then be handwritten to the thank you card that goes with it.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
And that's really the last step. After that, it's placing your order. Again, to drop ship, all you do is enter your client's address for the destination. Again, there's no additional fee or branding, KISS branding, anything like that. So again, it's just removing any of those roadblocks or barriers between you and your brand and your relationship with your client. So that's kind of where
we discount for multiple books. So if you add a 10 by 10 and you want a parent book, an exact copy or a clone, I used to give discounts for parent copies if they would do it exactly the same way I design it as a photographer. And so we want to give that to the photographer as well. It costs us the same amount to do it because it's a very hand-built book that is, labor intensive and things like that. But we want you selling more books, and we want to create ways for you to do that. So if you order one book, there's a discount, if you order the second book, the clone, there's a discount. If you order a third book, there's a bigger discount on that as well. So we're trying to help, do whatever we can to remove barriers, to make it simple for you to run your business. And it's like, well, you can even say it, like use us as a sales pitch, say like, well, my book company actually gives us a discount for that second book. So I want to pass it on to you. Do you want to order parent books now? There's so many opportunities for us to sell, that if we're afraid of it, we'll never be able to do it, but if we get rid of that limiting belief when we try it, we don't know, their parents could like really want a book. And if we never offer it to them, they're going to have to go find it somewhere else. And the statistic that keeps me like excited about what we're building and everything that we're investing in and what we're building next is because between 70 and 80% of designs that get started, 70 to 80% of designs that get started in the consumer world do not get finished or ordered.
Wow.
So there's so many, a massive amount of photos out in, on these servers that are they've started to design something. And we've seen it here. Our designers struggle sometimes getting some people to the finish line because we don't have any boundaries around it right now. So we're going to launch that boundary because we've seen it work for us as photographers and for photographers that are currently using us. How are they getting books ordered within, you can see the date when we stamp it. There's sometimes we're debossing or something like that. And it's like 2014. It's like, oh man, that's rough. But then we see like, wasn't this like 4 weeks ago? Like how'd they get that done? So we call them and we're like, hey, how are you doing this? They're like, I put a deadline and an incentive for them to get it done within 30 days of me showing them the design. I give them it. So I'm like, we're going to build that in. Like, how can we make this happen? Because again, if they have that book 30 days after their wedding, they're like still in love and like,
hopefully
they haven't got to the crazy parts of life yet. And they're excited about their wedding. Like, they're all tan from their honeymoon. And they're like, hey, I want to show you my wedding album. They're like, you already have your wedding album? Like, yeah, like I'm getting married. Like, who's your photographer? Like it instantly is just like creating a space for that creative entrepreneur to thrive. So.
And then awesome. What's the turnaround time at this point? Average, and I'm sure it ranges depending on the size of the books and the size of the order and so forth. But what's the average turnaround time that photographers should be considering?
It doesn't vary. It for everyone, again, makes it simple. It's 15 business days, wow. And we're a big, under promise, over deliver company. So internally, it's a little bit different than that because we want to stoke you out and like get you that order ASAP. And that's depending on the season. We're coming into a very busy season, so we push that limit a lot more. But 15 business days on any one of our books. But as soon as it's done, if it's not waiting for a second book, it'll go out. Sometimes like there is certain ones that are a little simpler to manufacture. The thin page linen books can be manufactured easier and a little bit faster because of the process. But if it's done in 5 days, it goes out, but if it's waiting on a leather thick page deep matte, that maybe had an issue, so we had to restart it or something like that to get it right. We have that time. It's 15 business day turnaround time. We have a rush that is 7 days. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's really, really great. Morgan, do you have anything else that you want to share in your screen before I turn that part off?
No, you're good to, you're good.
Okay, I'm going to shut that down.
Thanks for showing us.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring us
awesome.
all back in here and there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So we can see everybody here for a second, but just to kind of close the conversation, I'd love that you have very simply demonstrated how KISS addresses these primary pain points that we talked about last week and this week again. I'm a huge fan of KISS just simply for the culture behind it. And oh, by the way, you two are part of that culture. So major props to you for that. But I do love the simple solution that KISS is to these pain points. And thank you guys so much for making time to kind of demonstrate that on a much more tangible level. And again, for those of you that are listening in on the Bokeh Podcast, you're going to want to see the video of this. It's quite compelling. And if you're interested, go to facebook.com/photogsedit. That's PHOTOGSEDIT. We'll link to that in the show notes at Bokeh Podcast, BOKEH podcast.com as well, so that you can have quick and easy access to that. Rich and Heather, I'd love to get in your commentary you're active photographers now. And I'm thinking back even to the day when I was a photographer, shot for over a decade. Shaun did the same thing. Yeah. And we had the opportunity as a photography business to be ordering KISS books. I love that KISS is still not only here, but thriving however many years later and continuing to iterate too. And this is something that we talk about it a good bit on the podcast, but I've been reminded of it as late as well, not only just simply for the sake of photographers, but also as an owner at Photographers Edit, the reality, which is that if we don't continue to proactively communicate with not only our existing client base, but potential clients, the market at large, develop a certain amount of awareness of what our potential client needs, then it's going to be easy to get stagnant in the process of running a business. And that can drastically affect the viability of our business over the long run. Shaun, you guys are a beautiful example of a company who is consistently and constantly proactively figuring out what the photographer needs and meeting that need, but doing so in a beautifully simple way. And I really appreciate, again, you and Morgan both demonstrating that today. Anything that you guys want to throw in here at the last minute before we sign off?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Like Rich and Heather, what does your process look like? And because there's multiple designers, there's multiple book companies out there. Is there anything that you guys can add to this that could help a photographer? Like, hey, we also do this and it helps in this area. Like, is there a snippet on that?
No, y'all covered it so well. I just want to point out that I got to use this system when y'all first came out with like version 0.8. Was he? I mean, and the beta, and it's so great to see how smooth it is now, how many options you have. And it was very clunky at first, but I love this. I love that. The evolution of it has just been it's amazing,
Yeah, we've got a ton of feedback. Building an online platform was before its time for sure, but we saw the future. We feel like the future was headed to everything being online, and so we went that direction. Yeah. And we're grateful now, but it was very hard, and it still is. I mean, there's a lot of other companies doing similar things, meaning like other outside of our industry that is using similar technologies. And so at first we were writing all of it. And it's very open source when you get into software where you can grab code and utilize that type of stuff. But our development team is so committed, and the person that originally built it for us is still with us. And so he's evolved with the company. Now he understands the vision more. To hear a developer talk about the vision and the heart of a photographer is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Just because developers have this kind of like, whatever, we put them in a box of like, they just want to crawl into like a cave and code, It's not the case. Like, they're amazing and they're creative in their own way. People that do numbers can be creative. People that do code that can be creative. People that play guitar can be creative. People that shoot weddings can be creative. What is your art and what drives you? It's so amazing seeing somebody. So I appreciate you noticing that. We knew we were before the gun, but we're the type of company that's going to launch it, get feedback, and grow it. And launch it, launch it again, be innovative, and then be copied, and then be innovative, and then enjoy that innovation. If it works really well, get feedback. When you get into software, you're in software forever. You don't your development team has to stick around because you continue to grow that thing if you want it to last. I think, in the evolution of weddings, software, technology, like iPads and, all the different things, all the different ways that we can see a screen now is evolving. So we're trying to just keep our ear to the ground and create a smooth sailing, and remove as many barriers as possible for people to get this in front of other people, of their clients,
That's so cool.
Yeah. I, as a consumer and as a photographer and as a business owner, I have a question for you guys. You guys talked a lot about the why an album, why a hard copy, why a tangible product last week. And I thought that was a really great conversation. And we talked about part of the reason is that technology is moving so quickly forward that we don't want to rely solely on having those family, what could be a family heirloom existing only digitally, only virtually. And so printing our memories is part of our family's story and therefore is important. And as someone who's been through multiple natural disasters, fires and earthquakes, and my parents have lost, have had their wedding album damaged in a fire, and we can't access the photographer who's passed away, what are you guys doing as a company to try to progress with technology to the point where someone could down the road be able to come back and say, either a photographer could come back to you and say, like, my client's home burned down, they need, and this could be years down the road, as photographers, we keep all of our images, double and triple backed. But when we talk about the actual digital version of an album design, what are you doing? Or do you have any advice for us as photographers for things that we could be doing to try to not let technology be the reason that we can't deliver something like that to our clients in the future?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And that's, when I wake up in the morning and my feet hit the ground, that is one of the reasons that we do what we do, is like, it's why we do it. I love relationships, and I love that we're documenting relationships and telling that story over and over again through print. But ultimately, there are disasters and just things that happen. So what we do as a company is we do archive everything. So we moved to Amazon a couple of years ago, and Amazon has a feature where we can even, it's a little bit more affordable, but we're archiving terabytes of data, and that's on us. There's no, you don't have to be a pro or anything like that. We have a pro, it's like $100 a year for pro, and you get 2% back on all your orders. So we're trying to give this away because we want this to be a tool that you use. But we archive it. It's not like guaranteed, but it takes us a couple days to get that because it's deeper in the cloud. Basically, it's just an Amazon sub storage. But yeah, we archive everything, and we can pull up any design that's ever been made. We can pull up. It's at that point, it is not editable. And so you have to print it exactly because it flattens it out, like going from a Photoshop document to a JPEG. And so we store them as JPEGs, but we do not compress it. We don't anything. We just store it as is. And then it takes us a little while to pull it back up. But as a photographer, absolutely, have multiple backups and in different locations. Utilize the cloud. There are so many programs out there now. Some of them are built into some of the Apple devices that I use, that it scans your hard drive, on whatever you set it up to do. So you can go back into, previous things if something happens to your hard drive and grab it. And so have it in the cloud and have it stored in a fireproof safe. And I have mirrored terabytes of storage. And so if a drive goes bad, you pull that one out and you put a new one back in because it's copied to the one next to it. So it's like an 8 terabyte holder, and 4 of the terabytes are just copying or mirroring all that stuff. So there's just not enough backup that you can do, because the epidemic that has happened with digital photography is like, it wasn't that long ago. If I dropped this thing in the toilet, I would lose like proof of my kid's existence possibly because this is the camera that I use. What is the best camera in the planet? Is the one that you have on you. And so they're doing a great job with figuring out ways to back up because they realize us as consumers and professionals. See you, Rich. Sorry, man,
I gotta go. See you guys.
Bye, babe.
Bye, babe. It's as consumers, we don't have time. We don't care to take time until a disaster happens. Like, I wish I would have done that. That's what we don't want to see happen. So we're trying to figure out ways to do that, but store your stuff, back it up multiple times, print it, because the likelihood of a fire can totally happen. Right. But it's still like, it's printed. Like, what is the one thing that you go and grab, or what you hear about in a fire? People want to go grab photos. Yeah. Because it's like, that's the memories, but it's already happening. People are losing existence or proof of existence in photograph form of their life. So they have passports and they have birth certificates, but they literally they lost their hard drive, or they lost their computer, or it's all on Facebook or whatever. And for whatever reason, it goes bad, or they have lost proof of existence in photographic form, and I love looking at pictures of like my grandparents or people that I haven't even met that I knew were in my family, and there's a story that goes behind it. So when I look at that photograph, I love that. Yeah. But we're just printing. We're printing again, which is great. We're coming back, and we're realizing that, like, hey, print matters. And so that's why I'm here in New York. I'm meeting with the Printographer Society. They're all about print and teaching photographers what it means to print. Because when we were film photographers, you had to print, that's how you showed them their images. Yeah. Now as digital, you have the option. You can show them on a device, but really getting people to print, and the value of that. And just like the artwork on your wall right behind you, it's like, it's so valuable for us to have that stuff, proof of existence on our walls and things like that. It's such a different feeling than even having it on a device. It's a beautiful thing to put things on social media, Facebook and Instagram. It has a place, but I don't want to sit down and pull out my iPad and show somebody my wedding. I want to have a conversation over a coffee, over a bourbon, over a glass of wine. Just don't spill it on the book, and and flip through it. It's amazing. Yeah. I'll say this again, and I'll wrap up with this. Sorry, Nate.
No worries.
My grandpa has Alzheimer's. And when I go visit him, he's surrounded by photos. And what's crazy is he can sit there and tell you everything that happened in that photo. And like it was yesterday. And there's times where he's explaining something before I was even born, because he has a photo of it, like I was there. Or like, he's like, remember this, farm and this and that. And my aunt's like, hey, Shaun wasn't alive then, but like, go ahead and tell your story, and he tells it, and it's accurate. It's absolutely accurate. He can't remember like my daughter's name, but he can remember everything in that photograph. So there's something there. It gives me the chills every time I say that.
It's powerful.
But if you put a device in front of him, it's a little bit intimidating, sure, because of his age and stuff like that. Now, my 9-year-old, you put a iPad in front of him, he's going to win a game or do something like that, or, pull up his favorite app, whatever. But I can look at photos with him, and he loves the stories that go behind the photos. And an iPad is not a bad option for that. But you put a book in front of him, or a photograph, he wants to know everything about it. And it's almost like a different demeanor, And Dave Ramsey, I've said this a couple times recently, but Dave Ramsey did a study where if you use a credit card versus using cash, that your body physically feels it differently. I'm very curious. I'm almost guaranteed that if I give you an iPad of your images versus giving you a book of your images, just how your body will be different when you're going through it. It is there's that personal, in-depth touch to, physically holding the print that it has to be measurable, and I just love it. It's why KISS exists. I was a photographer for 15 years and loved it. Now I get to serve those creatives and really truly help them hopefully succeed, create a space for them to thrive in. That's our heart, So thanks so much, Morgan. You did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you, Morgan.
You bet,
yeah,
guys.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Shaun, as well, and Heather and Rich. This has been a good conversation, and ultimately it highlights, again, the beauty and the simplicity of what KISS is doing to offer a solution to photographers, professional photographers, to deliver what is an archival, hopefully long-lasting, something that can be passed down through generations, product in an album. You guys have made it easy to not only have access to the system that enables you to produce that product, but then ultimately deliver it to the client. I think it's a beautiful solution for everybody listening in, and for those watching. Make sure you go to kiss.us, just like it sounds. And of course, we'll link to it in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Again, if you're listening to the audio version, we'll also link to our Facebook page where you'll see a replay of this video today, because you're going to want to see the interface that Morgan demoed. Again, facebook.com/photogsedit, PHOTOGSEDIT. There you go. Got it. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
Great to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the Bokeh Podcast. Will you let us know what you thought by leaving a review of the podcast in iTunes or the Apple Podcast app? And I'd love to hear from you personally with your thoughts about the podcast and maybe suggestions about future topics and guests for the show. My email is nathan@photographersedit.com. The Bokeh Podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the wedding and portrait photographer. Visit photographersedit.com.